My name is Claire Donovan, and I was 31 years old when my parents decided to give my brother the house I had been secretly paying for 4 straight years. The phone call came on a Sunday afternoon in October. I was folding laundry when my mother's name lit up my screen. I picked up expecting the usual a recipe question, a complaint about the neighbor's dog, maybe news about someone from church. Instead, I heard champagne glasses clinking in the background and my father's laugh, that big, warm laugh he only used when he was proud of himself. "Honey," my mother said, her voice bright and loose the way it got after 2 glasses of wine. "We just wanted you to be the first to know. We're signing the house over to your brother next Saturday. We've decided it's the right thing to do after everything he's done for us." I sat down on the edge of my bed without realizing I was doing it. "What do you mean?" "Your brother has been carrying this family for years," she continued. "The mortgage, the bills. He never even asked for thanks. You know how he is. So humble. Your father and I want to do something meaningful for him. Something real. It's the least we can do." I set a folded shirt down on the mattress. "Mom," I kept my voice very quiet. "Who told you he's been paying the mortgage?" "Well, he did, sweetheart. And honestly, who else would it be?" I knew the answer to that question. I'd known it for 4 years. Every single month, from my account, under my name, with my credit score on the line. But they didn't know that, because my brother had made absolutely sure they never would. To understand how we got here, you have to understand what growing up in the Donovan house actually felt like. My parents weren't cruel people. That's what makes it complicated. They were just people who had decided, somewhere along the way, that my brother needed more. More patience, more celebration, more room to stumble and be caught. And I was the one who was supposed to understand that, without needing to be told. My brother is 3 years older than me. Growing up, he was magnetic in that careless way some people are the kind of person who walks into a room and makes everyone feel like they've been waiting for him. He wasn't mean to me exactly. He just didn't notice me much. And neither did anyone else when he was around. When I made honor roll in 7th grade, my mother taped the report card to the refrigerator for a day and a half before it got covered by a flyer for my brother's baseball tournament. When I got a full academic scholarship to state, my father shook my hand at the kitchen table and said, "That's great, kiddo. We always knew you'd figure something out." That same year, my brother dropped out of community college after 1 semester, and my parents spent 3 weekends driving him around to look at apartments, helping him find himself. I paid for my own books freshman year. I didn't mention it. That's how it worked in our house. I figured things out. I didn't resent it out loud because I had learned very early that resenting it out loud made me the difficult one, the jealous one, the one who couldn't just be supportive. So I learned to keep quiet and keep moving. I was good at it. I got so good at it that I think I actually fooled myself into believing it didn't cost me anything. I graduated with a degree in accounting, got hired at a mid-size firm in the city, and started building something careful and deliberate. A savings account, a good credit score, a studio apartment I paid for entirely on my own. Small things, but they were mine in a way that nothing in my childhood ever really was. Then, 3 days before Thanksgiving 4 years ago, I got a call from my mother that she didn't mean to sound as bad as it did. "We got a notice from the bank," she said, "about the house. I think there might be some kind of mistake." It wasn't a mistake. My father had taken out a second mortgage 7 years earlier to fund a business idea that never made it past the planning stage. He'd borrowed against the house without telling my mother the full amount. And when the business folded, he'd been managing the payments quietly, using money from his retirement account until the retirement account ran out. The notice my mother was holding wasn't a warning. It was the beginning of the end. They were 4 months behind, and the bank had initiated foreclosure proceedings. I didn't sleep that night. I want to be honest about something. I didn't save my parents' house because I expected anything in return. I want to say that clearly because it matters. I did it because I was 27 years old, and I could not picture my mother packing boxes. I could not picture my father standing on the lawn watching strangers walk through the house where he'd hung my childhood drawings on the wall with pushpins, even if he hadn't noticed them much once they were up. So, I went to my bank. I used my credit, my income, my name, and I refinanced the existing mortgage into a new loan. $1,940 a month. I set up automatic payments from my checking account, and I told exactly no one. Not my parents, because I knew the conversation would become about how my father felt, and I didn't have the emotional bandwidth for that. And not my brother, because honestly, I just didn't think of him. He had never once asked about the family finances in his entire adult life. It didn't occur to me that he'd find out. But he did find out. About 6 months after I started making payments, my brother borrowed my laptop at Christmas to look something up. I was in the kitchen when he came to find me, and the look on his face was strange. Not guilty. Not surprised, exactly. More like someone who has just been handed something they weren't expecting and is already calculating what to do with it. "Hey," he said casually. "You refinanced Mom and Dad's house?" I told him yes, briefly, and asked him not to mention it to our parents. I said I didn't want them to feel like they owed me anything. I meant it. He nodded slowly, said that was really generous of me, and went back to the living room. That was the last time either of us spoke about it directly. I thought that meant he understood. I thought that meant the secret was safe. I was wrong. I found out what he had done the way I found out most true things in my family by accident, from someone who didn't realize they were telling me something I didn't know. My mother's oldest friend, a woman named Patricia who has known our family since before I was born, pulled me aside at a birthday party about 8 months after that Christmas. She squeezed my arm and told me she'd heard what my brother was doing for our parents. Covering the mortgage every month. "So selfless," she said. "He really stepped up. Your parents are so proud of him." I stood very still and asked her what she meant. "Oh, your mom told me all about it," Patricia said. She got a little teary, actually. She said he never makes a big deal of it, just quietly handles it every single month. Never asks for a thank you. Patricia moved on to get a drink, and I stood there in the middle of that party with a paper plate in my hand thinking about the look on my brother's face at Christmas. That calculating look I hadn't been able to name. He had taken my silence and made it into his story. Every month that I transferred money, every confirmation email that came to my inbox, every payment that showed my name on it, he had let our parents believe it was him, and not just let them believe it. He had told them. Patricia said my mother cried. My mother, who had watched me figure things out my entire life without once getting teary, had cried talking about my brother's sacrifice. I drove home from that party and sat in my parking garage for 20 minutes before I trusted myself to go inside. I went back and forth for weeks about what to do. Part of me wanted to call my brother immediately. Part of me wanted to send my mother the bank statements right then and let the evidence speak for itself. But I had lived in this family long enough to know how the story would get rewritten if I moved too fast. I'd be accused of making things about me, of trying to undermine him, of being jealous that he was finally getting recognition. My parents loved my brother in the way that made them want to believe the best version of every story that featured him. And I needed to be very careful about how and when I introduced a different version. So I waited. And I watched. And I kept making payments. I'm not proud of the waiting. I understand now that staying quiet, even strategically, has a cost. Every month I sent that payment and said nothing was a month I was complicit in my own erasure. I'm not asking for sympathy about that. I'm just telling the truth. The phone call from my mother on that Sunday afternoon changed everything, because this wasn't just my brother taking credit for my money anymore. Now they were rewarding him with the actual house, the house that my credit score had saved. The house that had my name on the loan, a loan, I should be clear, that I was still paying. I called my best friend immediately after I hung up with my mother. Her name is Dana, and she's a paralegal at a firm that handles real estate cases. I told her everything, all of it, starting from Christmas 4 years ago and ending with the champagne glasses I'd heard in the background. Dana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Does your brother know the loan is in your name?" "I think so. He saw the refinancing documents on my laptop. Then he knows exactly what he's doing," she said. "Claire, they can't transfer ownership of a property that has an active loan on it without the lender's involvement. And since the loan is in your name, you are a party to any conversation about that house. They can't just sign it over and walk away from your debt." I let that sink in. "I need everything in writing," I said. "Every bank statement, every payment confirmation, every piece of paper with my name on it." "I'll help you," Dana said. How long do they have until this signing? 6 days. She took a breath. Dana came over that evening with a legal pad and a box of tea she'd brought because she knows I don't drink coffee when I'm stressed. We sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. She pulled up the loan documents, the payment history, the confirmation emails going back 48 months, 48 payments, $1,940 each. We printed everything, organized it by date, and put it in a manila folder. Then Dana did something I wouldn't have thought to do. She wrote a formal letter to my parents' bank on my behalf, flagging that any transfer of the property would require my involvement as the loan holder, and requesting that no action be taken until they received further documentation from me. She sent it that night. I don't think either of us slept very much. The next morning I called my brother. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 weeks, which was not unusual. He picked up on the second ring and sounded perfectly relaxed, the way someone sounds when they haven't been found out yet. I heard about the house, I said. Yeah. He paused for just a moment. Isn't it great? They're really happy about it. I want to talk to you about that. Another pause, shorter this time. You know what's up? My voice stayed even. I've been making those mortgage payments for 4 years, not you. I have every bank statement. I have every confirmation. It's all in my name. The silence on his end was different now. Not casual. Something had shifted in it. Claire, I gave you the chance to tell them the truth, I said. You've had 4 years. Instead, you let them believe it was you, and now they're giving you the house because of it. A house I'm still paying for. His voice, when it came back, had changed shape. It had gotten careful. Look, I was going to say something. Things just got complicated. You know how Mom and Dad are. They needed something to hold on to. You just let them hold on to a lie. He didn't answer that. I'm going to the dinner on Saturday, I said. And I'm going to tell the truth. Claire, his voice sharpened. That is not a good idea. You're going to hurt them. After everything they've been through. I thought about that for a moment. The phrase, everything they've been through. How many times in my life had I adjusted myself because of everything they'd been through? How many times I'd shrunk and swallowed and stayed quiet to protect people who had never once asked whether I was okay. I'll see you Saturday, I said, and I ended the call. Let me be honest about something else. I spent the rest of that week going back and forth. There were moments when I almost talked myself out of it. It would cause a scene. It would upset my parents. It would make the whole family uncomfortable at a dinner that was supposed to be a celebration. My brother would say I was jealous. He would find a way to make me the villain. These are not irrational fears when you have spent 31 years being the quiet one in a family that has decided what your role is. But then I would go back to the statement in my inbox. Current month, $1,940, Claire Donovan. And I would think about my credit score on the line, and my name on a loan, and a house about to be signed over to a man who had never once made a payment on it. And something in me would get very still and very clear. I wasn't doing this because I wanted the house. I want to say that too, because it matters. I was doing it because the truth was going to come out one way or another when the bank flagged the transfer, when the title search happened, when any lawyer doing due diligence looked at the loan documents, and it was going to be a lot worse for everyone if it came out in a closing attorney's office than if it came from me first. At least that's what I told myself. Partly, I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. Partly, I was tired of handing things to people who didn't see me. The dinner was at my parents' house on a Saturday evening in November. My mother had made a pot roast, which she only makes for special occasions. The table was set with the good plates. My aunt and uncle were there. A family friend who had known my parents since college. My brother's girlfriend. 6 people around a table. And my folder in my bag on the hook by the front door. My father made a toast before dinner was even served. He stood up with his glass of wine and got a little sentimental the way he sometimes did, talking about hard times and family sticking together and how grateful he and my mother were. And then he looked at my brother and said, "You kept this family afloat when we didn't know which way was up. You kept a roof over our heads without ever asking for a thing in return. That's the kind of man you are. And this house deserves to belong to someone who fought for it." My brother smiled. That practiced, humble smile. He ducked his head slightly the way you do when you're performing modesty. His girlfriend squeezed his hand. My mother was already tearing up. My aunt lifted her glass. "To family," she said. And I said, quietly, from my seat at the corner of the table, "Actually, before we toast, I'd like to say something." My father looked at me. His expression was warm, still riding the emotion of his own speech. "Of course, sweetheart, go ahead." I reached back and unhooked my bag from the chair. I took out the folder. I set it on the table in front of me, and I placed my hand flat on top of it, the way you place your hand on something you're not going to let go of. "I'm glad we're all here," I said, "because I've been waiting a long time to tell the truth about something, and I think everyone in this room deserves to hear it." My brother's smile had gone very still. "The mortgage on this house has been paid every month for 4 years. My father nodded along, ready to thank my brother again. I kept going, from my account, under my name. "Because when you got the foreclosure notice, I refinanced the loan and put it in my name to save this house. I have the paperwork. I have every bank statement. All 48 months. I opened the folder and slid the top page across the table toward my father. He looked down at it. I watched his eyes find the name at the top. Claire Donovan. Account number. Routing number. Payment amount. $1,940. January through now." My mother made a sound I've never heard her make before. Not quite a word. Not quite not. "Dad," my brother started. "Let me finish," I said. My voice didn't waver, which surprised me. I had expected to feel something overwhelming in this moment, anger or grief, or the specific humiliation of having to prove yourself to people who should already know you. Instead, I just felt very clear, like weather after a storm. I told my brother what I'd found out at that birthday party. I told everyone at the table what Patricia had said. I told them about the phone call from my brother where he hadn't denied it. I placed the bank statements, one by one, in the center of the table. My aunt picked one up and read it. Her face changed. My uncle leaned in to look. My father was still holding the first sheet. He hadn't moved. "Is this true?" He looked at my brother. His voice had gone very low. My brother looked at his girlfriend, then at the table. "It's not, Claire didn't want them to know. She asked me to keep it quiet. I was trying to." "You were trying to take credit for something you had nothing to do with," I said. "And now Mom and Dad were about to give you a house because of it." My girlfriend reached for my brother's arm. He pulled away slightly. My mother said my name. Just my name, Claire. Like a question she didn't know how to finish. I looked at her. "I paid $1,940 every single month for 4 years because I could not watch you lose this house. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I didn't want the conversation to be difficult. I just wanted you to be okay." She pressed her fingers to her mouth. "But I am still paying it. The loan is still in my name. And I found out 6 days ago that you were planning to sign this house over to my brother as a thank you for something he never did." My father set the bank statement down on the table very carefully. He looked at my brother for a long moment. My brother opened his mouth. My father shook his head once, slightly, and my brother closed it again. I had never seen my father do that before. "I don't want the house," I said. "I want to be clear about that. I'm not here to take anything. I'm here because the truth was going to come out anyway. Any title search, any attorney looking at those closing documents would have found this, and I would rather it come from me, here, with all of us together, than in some attorney's office, where you'd be blindsided, and I'd have to explain why I'd let it go on this long." I looked around the table. My aunt had set the bank statement down and was looking at my brother in a way I'd never seen her look at anyone. My uncle had his arms crossed. My parents' family friend was staring at his pot roast. "I'm also stopping the payments," I said. "As of next month, the bank has been notified that any transfer of this property requires my involvement as the loan holder. You'll need to refinance into someone else's name, or sell, or make other arrangements. But I can't keep paying for a house that's about to be gifted to the person who lied about saving it." The room was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed slowly on the wet November street. Then, my father said, in a voice I had never heard from him, "Why didn't you tell us it was you?" I thought about all the answers to that question, all the true ones. I thought about the piano lessons and the scholarship and the handshake instead of the celebration. I thought about every time I had stayed quiet to make room for my brother's story. Because I learned very early that needing things from this family made me difficult, I said. So I stopped needing, and then I stopped telling you anything at all. My mother made that sound again. My father looked at the table. My brother stood up. He said he needed some air. His girlfriend followed him out. I heard the back door open and close. Dana had offered to wait in the car outside, and I had told her she didn't need to. But sitting in that room in the silence that followed my brother leaving, I wished she was there. Not because I was afraid. Just because sometimes you need a witness. My aunt got up and started clearing plates. She squeezed my shoulder as she passed me. That was the only thing anyone said for a few minutes. Eventually my father looked up. His face looked different. Older, somehow, but also more honest, like something he'd been carrying had been set down whether he wanted it to be or not. "We owe you an apology," he said. "Several of them." I nodded once. "That's a start," I said. I left before dessert. Not dramatically, I helped carry dishes to the kitchen. I hugged my mother, who held on longer than she had in years. My father walked me to the door. He said my name and then stopped and then said it again, like he was trying to figure out what came after it. I told him to call me when he was ready to talk about the loan. He said he would. He said he was sorry. He said it quietly, without the big voice he used for speeches, and I believed him more for that. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat and the heat turned up and the radio off. The fallout took the shape you would expect, and also some shapes I wouldn't have predicted. My brother and his girlfriend broke up 3 weeks after the dinner, which I only know because my aunt told me. He moved out of their shared apartment and back to a city 2 hours away. He sent me a text that said, "I know I was wrong." I didn't respond. Not because I was punishing him, but because I genuinely didn't know yet what I wanted to say, and I had spent too much of my life saying things before I was ready, because silence felt unkind. My parents refinanced the house with help from my uncle as a co-signer. They got a worse rate than I had, because their credit was not what mine had been when I stepped in, but it was workable. They kept the house. That mattered to me. I hadn't told the truth to blow everything up. I'd told it because the truth was the only thing that had a chance of making any of this better. What I didn't predict was the conversation I had with my mother 6 weeks later, at her kitchen table with 2 cups of tea and no one else in the house. She told me she'd been thinking about the piano. I looked at her. "When you were 10, she said, you asked to take lessons and I signed your brother up instead. I told you to teach yourself." I remembered. I nodded. "I've been thinking about it ever since the dinner," she said. "I've been thinking about all the times I told myself you were fine because you seemed fine, because you never complained. And I think I let myself believe that because it was easier than looking at what I was actually doing." I held my tea with both hands and didn't say anything. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right now," she said. "I don't think that's fair to ask. I just want you to know that I see it. I see what I chose and what it cost you, and I'm sorry. Truly." The quiet in the kitchen felt different from the quiet at the dinner table. It didn't feel like aftermath. It felt like something small and new. I told her I needed time. She said that was fair. "I'm still not sure what I want the relationship with my family to look like from here." That's an honest answer. Some things you can't just resolve because an apology was made and received. Some things take longer than a winter to rebuild. My brother and I haven't spoken since his text. My parents and I have dinner every few weeks, cautiously, learning how to be in a room together in a different way than we were before. What I can say is that the month after I stopped making payments, I took the money I'd been sending to that mortgage and I put it in a travel account. I'm going to Ireland in the spring. I've never been anywhere just for myself. I've been saving for other people's emergencies my entire adult life. It turns out there is money left over when you stop doing that. My credit score is excellent. I have it protected. I know where all my important documents are, and they are in a fireproof box under my bed, and nobody on this earth has the combination except me. I used to think that staying quiet was a form of kindness. I thought if I never asked for recognition, never pushed back, never caused a scene, I was doing something graceful and mature. I was keeping the peace. But peace you keep by making yourself smaller isn't peace. It's just a longer way of disappearing. The loudest thing I ever did was sit at a dinner table with a manila folder and tell the truth. And the strangest thing about it was how quiet I felt inside while I was doing it. Like I had finally caught up to myself. I spent years being easy. Easy to overlook, easy to take from, easy to thank for understanding. I'm done being easy. And I have to tell you, the view from here is something else entirely. If you've ever been the one who quietly carried something no one gave you credit for, drop a comment and tell me about it. What finally made you speak up? And if this story stayed with you, please subscribe, because I'll be right here, telling the truth.